Young waitress forced to marry 80-year-old millionaire for money. 5 days later, she was shocked by what happened to her. The diner was bustling with its usual evening crowd, a mix of tired office workers, families, and a few lone patrons nursing cups of coffee. Olivia darted between tables, balancing plates of food and pitchers of water with practiced efficiency. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy ponytail, and though her face carried a cheerful smile, her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. "Order up," the cook called from the kitchen, sliding a plate of steaming spaghetti onto the counter. Olivia grabbed the plate and hurried to table 5, where an elderly man in a tailored suit sat alone. He had ordered the special, a simple meal for someone who clearly didn't fit the usual clientele of the small, run-down diner. "Here you go," she said, setting the plate down in front of him. "Spaghetti and meatballs. Can I get you anything else?" The man looked up at her, his piercing blue eyes contrasting sharply with his wrinkled face. "Just some company, if you're not too busy," he said, his voice warm but commanding. Olivia hesitated. The diner was packed, and she didn't have time to linger. But something about the man's tone made her pause. "I'll be back in a minute," she said, rushing off to tend to another table. A few minutes later, when the rush had died down, Olivia found herself back at his table, refilling his water glass. "So, how's the spaghetti?" she asked. "It's fine," the man replied, setting down his fork. "But I'm more interested in hearing about you." "Me?" Olivia said, taken aback. "I'm just a waitress. Nothing exciting to tell." "I doubt that," he said, leaning back in his chair. "People always have stories. You just have to ask the right questions." Olivia chuckled, unsure where this was going. "Okay, what do you want to know?" The man studied her for a moment. "You work hard. I can see that, but you seem burdened. Am I wrong?" Olivia's smile faltered. "It's nothing I can't handle." "Humor me," he pressed gently. "What's weighing you down?" She sighed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "If you must know, my mom's sick. Really sick. And the medical bills are piling up faster than I can pay them. Every dollar I make here goes straight to keeping the lights on and food on the table." The man nodded thoughtfully. "And no one else to help?" "It's just me," Olivia said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "But I'll figure it out. I always do." He was silent for a moment before speaking again. "If you could change your life with one decision, would you?" Olivia blinked, unsure if she'd heard him correctly. "What kind of question is that?" "A serious one," he said, his gaze steady. She hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. "I'd do anything to help my mom, but nothing in life is free. There's always a catch." The man smiled, a knowing, almost mysterious smile. "You're right about that. Nothing is free." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. "Think about what I said. Call me if you're interested." Before Olivia could respond, he stood, leaving a tip that made her eyes widen in shock. "Wait," she called after him. "Who are you?" The man turned at the door, tipping his hat. "Howard," he said simply, "and I think we'll be seeing each other again." As he walked out into the night, Olivia stared at the business card in her hand, her heart pounding. It read, "Howard Whitmore, private investor." She didn't know what to think, but one thing was certain: her life was about to change. A week after their unusual encounter at the diner, Olivia received a phone call from a number she didn't recognize. She answered hesitantly, balancing her phone on one shoulder while folding laundry in her cramped apartment. "Hello?" "Miss Olivia," the familiar voice said. "It's Howard Whitmore." Olivia froze, her mind racing back to the elderly man with the piercing blue eyes and the mysterious business card. "Oh, Mr. Whitmore," she stammered. "What can I do for you?" "I'd like to invite you to my home," he said, his tone even but firm. "There's a proposition I'd like to discuss with you. Are you free tomorrow afternoon?" Olivia hesitated, unsure of what to make of the request. She glanced at the pile of bills on the counter and the sounds of her mother coughing faintly from the bedroom. "I suppose I can make it," she said finally. "Excellent," Howard replied. He gave her the address, a mansion in an affluent neighborhood, and hung up. The next day, Olivia found herself standing outside a sprawling estate, its manicured lawns and towering gates a stark contrast to the world she lived in. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and pressed the intercom button. "Miss Olivia," a voice crackled through the speaker. "Mr. Whitmore is expecting you." The gates opened, and Olivia walked up the long driveway, her heart pounding with every step. Howard greeted her at the door, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. He looked every bit the wealthy tycoon she had imagined. "Thank you for coming," he said, ushering her inside. The interior of the mansion was even more opulent than the exterior. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. Olivia felt out of place, like a stray cat wandering into a palace. "Please sit," Howard said, gesturing to a plush armchair in the sitting room. Olivia sat stiffly, clutching her purse. "What's this about, Mr. Whitmore?" Howard took a seat across from her, his expression calm but serious. "I'll get straight to the point," he said. "I need a wife." Olivia blinked, certain she had misheard. "Excuse me?" "I need a wife," he repeated. "Not for love or romance, but for companionship. Someone to be by my side in my remaining years. In return, I'll pay off all your debts, cover your mother's medical expenses, and ensure you're financially secure for the rest of your life." Olivia stared at him, her mind reeling. "This is a joke, right?" "Not at all," Howard said, his tone unwavering. "I've lived a long life, Miss Olivia. I've built wealth, seen the world, and experienced things most people can only dream of. But now I find myself alone. I have no family, no heirs, and frankly, no one I trust. You strike me as someone who is honest, strong, and capable of understanding a mutually beneficial arrangement." Olivia's mouth went dry. "You want me to marry you? For money?" Howard nodded. "Think of it as a contract. You get the financial relief you desperately need, and I get the peace of mind of having someone by my side." Olivia's emotions swung wildly between shock, anger, and desperation. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know enough," Howard replied simply. "I can't believe this," Olivia muttered, standing abruptly. "This is insane." Howard didn't flinch. "Take your time to think about it. But remember, this is an opportunity to change your life, and your mother's." That evening, back in her tiny apartment, Olivia paced the room, replaying Howard's words in her mind. The very idea of marrying a man 57 years her senior felt absurd, almost degrading. But every time she dismissed the thought, the reality of her situation came crashing back. Her mother's illness was worsening. The bills were piling up. The diner job barely kept food on the table, let alone provided any hope of digging out of debt. She checked on her mother, who was sleeping fitfully in the next room, her frail frame barely visible under the thin blanket. Olivia's chest tightened with a mix of fear and helplessness. By the time the sun rose, she knew what she had to do. The next afternoon, Olivia returned to Howard's mansion, her heart heavy but her resolve firm. He greeted her at the door with the same calm demeanor. "I've thought about your offer," she said, stepping inside. "And?" Howard prompted. "I'll do it," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. "I'll marry you." Howard nodded, his expression betraying no surprise. "You've made a wise decision, Miss Olivia. I believe this arrangement will benefit us both." As they shook hands, sealing the deal, Olivia couldn't help but wonder what she had just agreed to, and how it would change her life forever. The wedding took place just 2 weeks after Olivia accepted Howard's proposal. It was a small, private ceremony held in the garden of his sprawling mansion. The guest list was composed of a handful of Howard's old friends and business associates, along with a lawyer and a minister. There were no family members present, Howard had none left, and Olivia hadn't invited anyone from her own life. She couldn't bear the questions or judgment. As Olivia stood in front of the minister, dressed in a simple white gown Howard's assistant had picked out for her, she felt every pair of eyes on her. Whispers floated through the crowd, subtle but sharp enough to make her feel exposed. "Isn't she a little young for him? I wonder how much he's paying her. She must be desperate." Olivia swallowed hard, keeping her gaze fixed on Howard, who stood calmly beside her. Despite the situation, he appeared completely at ease, his tailored suit impeccable, his expression composed. When the vows were exchanged, Olivia struggled to keep her voice steady. Howard, on the other hand, spoke with clarity and confidence, as though he were sealing a business deal rather than entering a marriage. "With this ring," Howard said, sliding a modest band onto her finger, "I promise to provide and protect." Olivia hesitated before repeating her own vows, the words catching in her throat. "With this ring," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I promise to stand by you." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Howard turned to Olivia with a small, polite smile. "Welcome to your new life," he murmured as they shared a brief, formal kiss. The reception was subdued, a catered lunch in the same garden where the ceremony had taken place. Olivia moved through the crowd like a ghost, exchanging polite smiles and answering questions with rehearsed responses. "So how did you and Howard meet?" one guest asked, her tone sweet but laced with curiosity. "At a diner," Olivia replied, forcing a smile. "We connected over conversation." The woman raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical, but didn't press further. Across the garden, Olivia caught Howard's eye. He was engaged in a deep discussion with an older gentleman, gesturing animatedly as though presenting a pitch. Despite his age, he exuded an undeniable presence, commanding, confident, and sharp. That evening, Olivia moved into Howard's mansion, carrying only a small suitcase. The house, with its endless rooms and halls, felt more like a museum than a home. "This will be your room," Howard's assistant said, showing her to a spacious suite on the second floor. "Mr. Whitmore's room is down the hall. He values his privacy." Olivia nodded, her feelings a mix of relief and awkwardness. Privacy was one thing she wasn't sure she'd have in this arrangement. Over the next few days, Olivia tried to adjust to her new life. The mansion was immaculate, with staff tending to every detail, from the fresh flowers in every room to the perfectly arranged meals. But it all felt cold, distant. Howard, for his part, maintained a cordial but detached demeanor. They had breakfast together each morning, where he would ask about her plans for the day. The conversations were polite but superficial. "Do you need anything?" he asked one morning over coffee. "No," Olivia replied, stirring her tea. "Everything's fine." Howard nodded, returning to his newspaper. It wasn't until Olivia stumbled into Howard's study one afternoon that she began to see another side of him. She had been wandering the mansion, trying to familiarize herself with the labyrinth of rooms, when she heard his voice. Pushing the door open slightly, she saw him seated at a large desk, speaking animatedly into a phone. "Yes, the projections are solid," he was saying. "If we allocate 10% more to the education fund, we can double the outreach in underprivileged areas." Olivia lingered in the doorway, surprised. She had assumed Howard was retired, content to live out his days in quiet luxury. But here he was, discussing complex financial strategies with a vigor that belied his age. When Howard ended the call, he noticed Olivia. "Eavesdropping, Mrs. Whitmore?" he said, a faint smirk on his lips. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said quickly. "I just didn't know you were still so involved in things." Howard gestured for her to enter. "What did you think I did all day? Sit in a rocking chair and count my money?" Olivia hesitated, unsure how to answer. "Honestly, I wasn't sure." Howard chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I may be old, but I'm not obsolete. There's still much to be done, and I intend to stay sharp until my last day." She looked around the room, noticing the stacks of documents and detailed charts pinned to a board. "What is all this?" "Charity work," Howard said simply. "Education funds, housing initiatives, medical grants. I've spent most of my life building wealth. Now, I spent it trying to do something meaningful with it." Olivia stared at him, a new respect forming. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," he replied, his tone matter of fact. For the first time since their wedding, Olivia felt a flicker of admiration for Howard. Beneath the formal exterior and vast wealth, there was a man who cared deeply about leaving a legacy beyond money. As she left the study, her mind buzzed with questions. Maybe there was more to this arrangement, and to Howard, than she had initially thought. The mansion had started to feel less intimidating to Olivia as the days went by, though it still wasn't home. She spent most of her time wandering the halls, observing the paintings, and chatting briefly with the staff. Howard remained a puzzle to her, distant yet undeniably active, constantly in meetings or buried in paperwork. On the fifth day, Olivia found herself curious about what occupied Howard's time. Their breakfast conversations hinted at his involvement in philanthropic work, but he rarely elaborated. It was as if he assumed she wouldn't care or understand. That afternoon, while exploring the second floor, she passed by Howard's study and heard voices inside. The door was slightly ajar, and though she hesitated, the sound of her name stopped her in her tracks. "Her family?" a man's voice said. "Yes," Howard replied. "Ensure they're added to the list. The mother's medical expenses should be covered immediately." Olivia's breath caught. "Caught. And the debts?" the man asked. "Handled," Howard said firmly. "I don't want her to know. This is about giving her a chance to build a life, not to feel indebted." Olivia stepped back, her heart racing. She hurried down the hall, her mind reeling. Later that evening, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about what she had overheard. Howard had been helping her family, quietly, without expecting recognition or gratitude. It wasn't just the proposal and the promise of financial security. He had gone beyond what she could have imagined. She had to know more. The next day, Olivia approached Mrs. Collins, Howard's longtime housekeeper. The older woman had been kind to Olivia since her arrival, often bringing her tea or suggesting places to explore within the mansion. Mrs. Collins, Olivia began hesitantly, "Can I ask you something about Howard?" Mrs. Collins gave her a knowing smile. "You're curious about your husband?" Olivia flushed at the word husband but nodded. I overheard something about him helping my family, and I don't understand why he would do that." Mrs. Collins's expression softened. "Mr. Whitmore has always been a generous man. He doesn't talk about it much, he prefers his actions to speak for themselves, but he's helped countless families over the years. Education scholarships, medical grants, housing programs. He believes that wealth should be used for good." Olivia frowned. "But why my family?" "I imagine he saw something in you," Mrs. Collins said gently. "Mr. Whitmore has a keen eye for potential. He wouldn't have made the offer he did if he didn't believe you were worth it." The words lingered in Olivia's mind long after their conversation ended. That evening, Olivia decided to confront Howard. She found him in the library, seated in his usual armchair with a book in hand. The fire crackled softly in the background, casting a warm glow over the room. "Howard," she said, stepping inside. He looked up, raising an eyebrow. "Olivia, to what do I owe the pleasure?" She hesitated, unsure how to phrase her thoughts. "I overheard you talking yesterday about my family." Howard closed his book, setting it aside. "I see. And what did you hear?" "You've been helping them," she said, her voice trembling. "Paying for my mom's medical bills, covering the debts." "Why?" Howard leaned back in his chair, his expression calm. "Because it was the right thing to do." "That's not an answer," Olivia pressed, stepping closer. "You didn't have to do any of that. The arrangement we made didn't require it." Howard studied her for a moment before speaking. "Olivia, I've lived long enough to know that sometimes people just need a little help to get back on their feet. Your family is struggling, and I had the means to ease that burden." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because you don't even know us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Howard's expression softened. "I know you, Olivia. I see your strength, your determination to fight for your mother, despite the odds stacked against you. That's rare, and it's worth investing in." Olivia felt a lump rise in her throat. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Howard replied. "Just live your life. Help your mother. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help someone else, do it." For the first time since she had met him, Olivia saw Howard not as a wealthy, calculating businessman, but as someone who genuinely cared about making a difference. That night, as she lay in her room, Olivia's feelings toward Howard began to shift. What had started as resentment toward his wealth, his power, and the arrangement he had proposed was slowly turning into something else. Admiration, gratitude. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to this man, and this marriage, than she had ever imagined. The evening air in the mansion felt heavier than usual as Olivia paced the length of her room. The conversation with Howard earlier had left her restless, her mind swirling with questions and emotions she couldn't quite place. Why had he chosen to help her family so selflessly? Why did he care? Finally, unable to sit with her thoughts any longer, she made her way to the library. Howard was where she expected him to be, seated in his usual chair by the fire, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked up as she entered, his piercing blue eyes narrowing slightly in curiosity. "Olivia," he said, setting his glass down. "What brings you here at this hour?" She hesitated, standing near the doorway. "I need to talk to you." Howard gestured to the chair opposite him. "By all means." Olivia sat, wringing her hands in her lap. The flickering firelight cast shadows across her face, but her eyes shone with determination. "Why?" she asked finally, her voice quiet but firm. "Why what?" Howard replied, though the slight tilt of his head suggested he already knew what she meant. "Why are you helping me?" she pressed, leaning forward. "Why did you pay off my family's debts? Cover my mom's medical bills? You didn't have to do any of that. The arrangement we made, it didn't include that." Howard studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "Because I saw something in you, Olivia. Something I haven't seen in a long time." "What could you possibly see in me?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm just a waitress. I barely have my life together." Howard's lips curved into a faint smile. "I see determination, resilience, a willingness to fight for the people you love, even when the odds are against you. It reminds me of myself when I was younger. Olivia blinked, caught off guard. You? Yes, he said, his tone calm. I wasn't born into wealth, Olivia. I came from nothing, just a poor boy with big dreams and a stubborn streak. I had to work harder than anyone else just to get a foot in the door. And when I finally succeeded, I swore I'd never let anyone else feel as hopeless as I once did. She stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time, she realized that beneath Howard's wealth and power was a man who had earned everything he had through sheer grit and determination. But why me? She whispered. Howard's smile softened. Because you're worth it, Olivia. You just don't know it yet. Her breath hitched, tears welling in her eyes. She looked away, her voice trembling. I don't deserve this, Howard. Not after why I agreed to this marriage. Howard tilted his head, his expression curious. Why did you agree, Olivia? She hesitated, the confession catching in her throat, but as she met his gaze, the kindness and patience in his eyes gave her the courage to speak. Because of the money, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was desperate. My mom needed help, and I couldn't see another way out. I didn't care about you or what this marriage meant. I just needed a way to survive. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia braced herself for anger or disappointment, but Howard's expression remained calm, almost contemplative. I see, he said finally. I'm sorry, Olivia said, her voice breaking. I know it's awful. I feel awful. But I couldn't think of anything else to do. And now I see everything you've done for me, for my family, and she trailed off, wiping at her eyes. I don't know how to make it right. Howard leaned forward, his gaze steady. Olivia, there's nothing to make right. I knew why you agreed to this marriage. I'm not naive. But that doesn't change the fact that you're here now, and you have the chance to make the most of it. She looked at him, her eyes filled with confusion and gratitude. You're not angry? No, he said simply. I've lived long enough to understand that people make decisions out of desperation. What matters is what they do next. And you, Olivia, you have the potential to do great things. Her shoulders sagged with relief, the weight of her guilt beginning to lift. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. I know I don't say it enough, but I mean it. Howard smiled, his eyes warm. You don't have to thank me, Olivia. Just promise me one thing. Anything, she said, her voice steady. Promise me that when the time comes, you'll pay it forward, he said. That you'll take the opportunities you've been given and use them to help others, the way I've tried to help you. Olivia nodded, her heart swelling with determination. I promise. As they sat in the quiet warmth of the library, Olivia felt a shift within her. What had started as a transactional arrangement was becoming something far more meaningful. And for the first time, she saw Howard not just as a benefactor or a stranger, but as someone she could truly respect, and maybe even care for. The following weeks marked a significant shift in Olivia's life. Howard, true to his word, began involving her in the many philanthropic projects he had built over the years. Their first stop was a community center in the heart of the city, a bustling hub where families came for free meals, educational programs, and medical aid. Olivia followed Howard as he moved through the center, his interactions with staff and visitors revealing a side of him she hadn't fully understood. You see, Howard explained, gesturing toward a group of children engrossed in a reading lesson, this is where wealth truly matters, not in bank accounts or luxury, but in creating opportunities for those who need them most. Olivia nodded, watching the children with a newfound sense of purpose. Over time, Howard began teaching Olivia the intricacies of managing his vast network of charitable endeavors. He invited her into meetings with his team, walking her through spreadsheets, budgets, and strategies. At first, it was overwhelming. Olivia had no background in finance or organizational management, but Howard was patient, breaking down concepts into digestible pieces. Start small, he advised one afternoon, handing her a folder of proposals. Choose one project you feel passionate about and focus your efforts there. The rest will follow. After careful consideration, Olivia chose to lead a project providing housing for single mothers. It struck a personal chord with her, as she remembered the struggles her own mother had faced raising her alone. Under Howard's mentorship, Olivia threw herself into the project. She visited the construction sites, met with the women who would benefit from the program, and worked closely with the team to ensure every detail was accounted for. For the first time, she felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond financial security. Helping others gave her a purpose she hadn't realized she was missing. One evening, as they returned home from a particularly successful day at the community center, Olivia turned to Howard in the car. "I never thought I'd find myself doing this," she admitted, her voice tinged with wonder. Howard smiled, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. "I knew you had it in you, Olivia. You just needed the right opportunity." "It's more than that," she said, her voice soft. "I think I needed someone to believe in me." Howard glanced at her, his expression warm. "And now you can believe in yourself." As Olivia grew more confident in her role, Howard began to step back, quietly observing her progress. He started delegating more responsibilities to her, encouraging her to make decisions independently. "You don't need me to hold your hand," he said one day, handing her a stack of files. "Trust your instincts. You've got this." Though she was nervous at first, Olivia rose to the challenge. Her housing project was completed ahead of schedule, and the opening ceremony brought tears to her eyes as she watched the first families move into their new homes. One afternoon, as they walked through the mansion's garden, Howard spoke with a tone of quiet resolve. "Olivia," he began, his hands clasped behind his back, "there's something I need to discuss with you." She looked at him, sensing the gravity in his voice. "What is it?" Howard stopped and turned to her, his eyes steady. "I'm not going to be here forever. I've been preparing for this moment for a long time, and I think you're ready." "Ready for what?" Olivia asked, her heart quickening. "To take the lead," he said simply. "All of this, the foundation, the projects, the legacy we've built together, I want you to carry it forward." Olivia stared at him, stunned. "Howard, I don't know if I can." "You can," he interrupted, his tone firm but kind. "I've watched you grow, Olivia. You have the passion, the intelligence, and the heart to do this. And I'll be here to guide you every step of the way." Her throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try," Howard said, a small smile tugging at his lips. Olivia nodded, her voice trembling. "I'll try." That night, as Olivia sat in her room, going over plans for an upcoming project, she realized how far she had come. What had started as a reluctant arrangement had turned into a journey of self-discovery and purpose. Howard had given her more than a lifeline, he had given her a chance to find herself. And for that, she would always be grateful. The grand ballroom of Howard's mansion had been transformed into a dazzling scene. Chandeliers cast warm, golden light over the elegantly dressed guests, and the air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. The occasion was a celebration of the completion of the housing project for single mothers, a project Olivia had poured her heart and soul into under Howard's mentorship. Olivia stood near the entrance, her nerves frayed despite the compliments and congratulations she'd received throughout the evening. She wore a sleek, deep blue gown Howard's assistant had selected for her, and though she looked every bit the poised hostess, her heart raced with anxiety. Howard approached her, his presence as commanding as ever in a sharp black suit. "Relax, Olivia," he said, his tone reassuring. "You've earned this moment." She managed a small smile, her hands clutching the glass of sparkling water she hadn't touched. "It's just a lot. All these people, all this attention. I'm not used to it." Howard smiled knowingly. "You'll get used to it. And tonight they're not here just for me, they're here for what you've accomplished." As the evening progressed, Howard took the stage at the center of the room, drawing the attention of the crowd. The murmur of conversations faded as he began to speak, his voice steady and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate a cause that's very close to my heart," he began, his gaze sweeping over the room. "This housing project for single mothers is more than just a collection of buildings. It's a beacon of hope for those who have struggled and fought for a better life. And none of it would have been possible without the hard work and dedication of someone very special." Olivia froze, her breath catching as Howard's eyes found hers. "Olivia," he said, gesturing for her to join him on the stage. The room erupted into applause as Olivia hesitated, her legs feeling like lead. But Howard's steady gaze gave her the courage to move forward. She climbed the steps, her heart pounding, and stood beside him as the applause died down. "Olivia came into my life under unusual circumstances," Howard continued, a hint of humor in his tone. The audience chuckled softly, but over time she has proven herself to be not only capable but extraordinary. Her passion and determination have breathed new life into the work we do here, and it's because of her efforts that this project has succeeded beyond our expectations. Olivia's cheeks burned, but she forced herself to meet the eyes of the crowd. Howard's expression grew serious, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. "Tonight, I want to do more than celebrate. I want to ensure that the legacy we've built continues to grow and thrive. And so, I am proud to announce that Olivia will be taking over as the head of the Whitmore Foundation." A gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by stunned silence. Olivia's own shock mirrored that of the guests. Howard continued, unperturbed. "She will oversee all of our philanthropic efforts, ensuring that the work we've started continues to make a difference in the lives of those who need it most. Furthermore, I am entrusting her with a significant portion of my estate to support her in this mission. This is my way of saying thank you to Olivia and to the countless lives she will impact in the years to come." The room erupted into applause once more, but Olivia barely heard it. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned to Howard, her voice trembling. "Howard, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Howard said, his voice gentle. "Just promise me that you'll carry this forward, that you'll continue to help others the way you've helped me find purpose again." Overwhelmed, Olivia nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I promise." As the applause subsided, Howard led Olivia off the stage, his hand steadying her as they returned to the crowd. Guests approached her with congratulations and words of encouragement, but Olivia's mind was still reeling from the announcement. Later that night, after the last guest had departed, Olivia and Howard sat together in the quiet of the library. The room was dimly lit, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls. "Why did you do this?" Olivia asked softly, breaking the silence. Howard leaned back in his chair, a faint smile on his face. "Because you've earned it, Olivia. You've proven that you're capable of carrying this responsibility, and because I trust you. But this is everything you've built," she said, her voice breaking. "And now it's yours to build upon," Howard replied. "My time is running out, Olivia. I've done what I can, and I have no regrets. But you have so much ahead of you. I want to see what you'll create." Tears filled her eyes again as she reached out to take his hand. "You've changed my life, Howard, in ways I never expected, and I'll do everything I can to honor what you've entrusted me with." Howard's smile widened, his eyes twinkling. "I know you will." As Olivia lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she reflected on how much her life had changed. What had begun as a desperate agreement had evolved into a journey of growth, purpose, and unexpected connection. Howard had not only saved her family, he had given her a future she could be proud of. And in doing so, he had shown her that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives one could touch and change. With that thought, Olivia drifted to sleep, ready to embrace the next chapter of her extraordinary journey. Years had passed since that transformative evening when Howard entrusted Olivia with his legacy. Under her leadership, the Whitmore Foundation flourished, expanding its reach to touch countless lives across the country. Housing projects, education programs, and medical aid initiatives became hallmarks of the Foundation's work, with Olivia at the helm, guiding each endeavor with the compassion and determination Howard had always admired in her. Howard's passing, though inevitable, had left a void in Olivia's heart, but his lessons and vision remained a constant source of strength, propelling her forward. One quiet afternoon, Olivia found herself alone in the Foundation's main office. The space was elegant but unpretentious, filled with awards and photographs of the communities they had impacted. At the center of the room hung a large portrait of Howard, his piercing blue eyes and serene expression immortalized in oil. Olivia stepped closer to the portrait, her hand gently brushing the frame. Her voice was soft, filled with emotion. "Howard," she began, her words trembling with gratitude, "I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't believed in me. You didn't just change my life, you gave it meaning. You showed me that true wealth is in the lives we touch, the futures we build, and the hope we give to others." She wiped a tear from her cheek, a smile breaking through her sadness. "I promise to keep making you proud, to keep building the legacy you started." As the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room, Olivia stood tall, a woman transformed. The waitress who had once struggled to make ends meet was now a leader, a change-maker, and a testament to the power of belief, kindness, and second chances. And in the quiet stillness of that moment, it felt as though Howard was there, smiling down at her, his legacy alive in every step she took. As Olivia stood before Howard's portrait, reflecting on how far she had come, we're reminded that even the most unexpected paths can lead to incredible transformations. Howard's belief in her not only saved her family but also gave her a purpose that would touch countless lives. This story shows us the power of trust, kindness, and the courage to embrace second chances. Olivia's journey is a testament to the fact that true wealth lies in the lives we impact and the legacy we leave behind. If this story moved your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration today. And for more soul-stirring tales that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit, make sure to subscribe to Stirring Stories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with another unforgettable story of hope and transformation.